Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Hey, good morning and welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists Podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And today we've got Jane Lambert on the show with us today. Jane Lambert is a Taekwondo practitioner, but she's so much more than that. You know, she's run clubs and she's competed. She's been involved in the martial arts industry for a long time, and we're really excited about getting Jane on to see who would like to be interviewed next. And Jane smashed it with our audience, so we're super excited to have her on today. So welcome on the show today, Jane.
Hi, welcome, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you guys.
Yeah, great stuff. So I normally get the privilege of asking our guests the first question. Can you just give us a little bit about your background, Jane, where you grew up, you know, your education, and how you got into martial arts?
I grew up in the West Country, which you can probably tell from my accent. I was born actually in Cambridge, but my dad was in the RAF, and when he left, he got a job at British Aerospace, so we moved down to a town just outside Bristol. Just had a standard British secondary school education and left. And I fell into Taekwondo when I actually left home and moved to Bristol. I started at the age of 22. A couple of friends of mine said, "Do you want to come along and have a go at martial arts?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to. It's something I'd always wanted to do." But I'm actually a really shy and quite a private person. So actually having the courage to go and walk into the door of a martial arts club on my own was just something that I would never, ever think of doing. So my friends kind of dragged me along, and I absolutely loved it. I went through the doors of the academy in Bristol, and I've been training there pretty much my entire Taekwondo career.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you sort of take it for granted now. Obviously, been in the martial arts industry for a long time, but then you sort of got to take yourself back to, you know, when your students first walk through the doors of a dojo, they're going through those same feelings, aren't they? And seeing all these strange people in white pajamas shouting and doing press ups, and it's like, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah. I mean, the lesson that I went along and watched one, and it was just a very junior belt lesson. I mean, there weren't any children training in Bristol at that time. It was just mostly men, and it was kind of yellow and white belts. But for me, they were amazing. They were like phenomenal, and I wanted to be like that. So yeah, I went along. My friends dropped out pretty quickly. I wasn't really very comfortable going on my own, but that was more comfortable than telling instructor I didn't want to go anymore. So I just kept at it and realised that actually, do you know what? I think I found something that I love, and I could be quite good at this. So yeah, by the time I got the kind of confidence to maybe have that conversation and say I didn't want to go, didn't even cross my mind. Absolutely loved it.
So what area of the martial art did you first take to? What really got you inspired into it?
I think I really, really like the fact that for an hour or 2 hours of your day, you are completely taken out of your own head, because you've got to so focus on your body and what your body's doing that, no matter what problems you're doing. I mean, I was working in accounts at the time when I started Taekwondo, and work could be quite difficult. I worked within the education system, and as you can appreciate, money is always quite tight. So I was always battling with department heads about, they needed more money, I didn't have more money, and so going somewhere and being able to switch off completely for an hour was just wonderful, and something I'd never really come across before. So I just found it so encapsulating, and that it absolutely, completely kind of took over my head. It took out all my mental power to kind of focus on my body and get my body to do the right things that, nothing else while I was in that dojo entered into my head, and that was just a wonderful thing to find.
Okay. Can you remember your first grading?
I can remember my first grading. My first grading with Grandmaster Hopwood.
Okay.
I was so nervous, absolutely terrified. The thought of being out there absolutely scared me to death. But I think I did really, really well. But then I messed up and I went round. I'm a bit dyslexic, so I really struggled with my left and my rights, and I ended up going round the same way twice on one of the Sajo Drugis. I just missed out on an A pass. And I got told off as well for doing press-ups on my knuckles, because I was a lady and ladies shouldn't do press ups on their knuckles. But I'm kind of my way of thinking is, if a student has to do press ups on their knuckles, then that means students do press ups on their knuckles. It shouldn't really matter whether they're male or they're female. It should be one rule for all, because that's kind of the ethos of martial arts, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But we know now, obviously, we shouldn't be doing press ups on
No,
our knuckles anyway.
absolutely.
It's quite bad.
Yeah, absolutely not. But yeah, things are different then, though. I'm sure you can remember.
Most definitely. So, how old were you when you acquired your black belt, your first degree?
I was 26, so I got my black belt in 1994.
Okay. And just talk us through that journey. Which areas, when traveling from your white belt on that journey to your black belt, everybody finds an area where they really struggle. What belt level did you start finding it really difficult, and probably start self-doubting yourself that you could achieve your black belt in the end?
I think I was probably a bit backwards to most people, because I really lacked confidence when I started, and I didn't believe I was ever going to be very good at anything. So I really struggled at the beginning. I mean, leading up to my black belt, it was just a case of let me have it. I've got this. I want my black belt so I can start, competing. Because I started going to squad training when I was a blue tag, I think, maybe blue belt. So yeah, I was desperate to get my black belt so that I could, get on the team and get out there and start doing things around the world.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? If you're a sparer, all you want to do is get your black belt so you can start fighting those black belt divisions. We had James Reed on the other day who said exactly the same thing. He was obviously a sparer through and through, and it's just a case of just get through these grades as fast as we can so we can get our black belt so we can start fighting in the men's black belt division, or obviously ladies black belt division. So tell us a little bit about your sort of competing career then, Jane. Did you compete as a colour belt?
I did my first competition as soon as I could. So as soon as I got my yellow belt, I entered a local competition. I think that was like a team championships, because we used to have a lot of team championships, which we don't seem to have anymore, do we? We used to have locals and national, just team competitions. But I guess we've got the tag team divisions now, which kind of fulfill that need.
Five-man team,
me and my team,
5 lady teams, yeah. Used to be five men team competitions, didn't they? Or 5 lady, yeah, 5 ladies.
Yeah. So I won third, I think, in my first competition, and then did another local that year and won third in individuals. So the following year after that, it's like I went out and I started. Yeah, I think I did pretty much every single competition then, up until probably when I retired from competition, which was about 2004. So spent a lot of time competing.
So what weight did you fight at?
I was at colour belt. I was quite chunky, so I was heavyweight. I kind of teetered in and out of middleweight, heavyweight. Probably, if I'm honest, more often in heavyweight at colour belt. So I was very often fighting the likes of Jenny Grant and Rosalind Simpson and Annette Puddifoot when I was a senior colour belt. And obviously in my area, Debbie Hill was a heavyweight, so I was very often.
Well, there's an incentive to lose some weight, isn't it? There's some great competitors in those divisions at heavyweight.
Absolutely. But once I got to black belt, obviously it was just really apparent that I was way too short to be a heavyweight. So I dropped down, and I was a light heavyweight. But ironically, since I stopped competing, I actually lost loads more weight, I have dipped in and out, not for a few years now, but after I retired from the squad, I did go on and kind of have quite a successful executive career, and dipped in and out, and even did go back into doing the younger divisions again. And I did okay, but I was never going to win, because I think I've lost that fire that you have to really want to win. So I enjoyed competing. I've lost my chain of thought, so I got so excited. What was the original question?
Well, I think you've answered it over. Don't worry. Just all about the way, and I can relate to that. So I retired in 2016, and I've been sitting on the sidelines. I do a lot of reffing now, and more recently I've started getting back into the tag teams, and it's frustrating because you lose that sharpness, and you're never going to be as good as when you're young. You're
just not
athlete.
that hungry, are you, anymore? I think it's
and you're older, as well.
No, that's got nothing to do with it. It's got nothing to do with it.
I definitely. It's my hips the next day. I train regularly. I do a lot of CrossFit, and I do a tag team event, and I feel like I've been beat up, and I've hardly been touched. I've hardly done anything. I always send out my young teammates to do all the hard work, and I just really turn up for the glory bit. But the next day, I feel like I've been run through the mill. It's absolutely excruciating. Hips killing, knees killing, ankles killing.
You want to discover magnesium?
I might try that then. But the level of fitness that you need to be a top class competitor, I think when you're in it, you take it for granted. But when you're actually out of it, then you step back and you appreciate it a hell of a lot more.
It's really quite a unique style of fitness as well. I mean, I'm fit. I mean, I'm cardiovascularly really fit. I now my hobby is adventure racing and ultra running. So I'm fit and ironically lighter now than I ever was. If I was fighting now, I'd be a lightweight. But it's a unique style of fitness, Taekwondo. I think it's very explosive, isn't it? So it's very anaerobic. Anaerobic at the same time, and it's not something that you can develop unless you are putting time in doing those rounds in the ring. Yeah,
and a little bit of endurance as well, because when you're going through a competition, you may have 6 bouts. So and those bouts can be anything from 30 minutes apart to 5 minutes apart. So you really have to train on all sorts of levels. Okay then, Jane, can you talk us through the first time that you were selected to compete in the TAGB squad? What was that trip and how did you get on with it?
My first trip away was to St. Petersburg in Russia.
That was a hard one.
Which was, the contact was pretty hard. I got absolutely floored with a back kick, which was just completely took the wind out of me. But what made it worse is the smelling salts that I guess their equivalent of a first aider came and kind of shoved under my nose. I felt like I'd been punched in the face. It was phenomenal. I've never experienced anything like it. But it was tough physically, but also it was quite difficult. I mean, I clearly won one of my fights, but I lost the decision. And luckily for me, Dave Oliver was in my corner, so he got straight in there and had, there was lots of arm waving and lots of shouting. So it was really fun because we got to go and fight again. And I won. He just went, "You better make it clear this time." So I went out and I won that fight, and I think I won the next one. But the Russians are tough. They weren't the biggest people to fight, but they could certainly punch well.
It's interesting, isn't it, on the international arena? So we're always as officials always warned, keep the contact light. But actually, certainly, and when I was on the squad myself, we used to, adhere to those rules. But certainly when we used to go away, it was full contact on a mat. There's no doubt about it. And if you got knocked out, if both of you are going slightly rough, then that's fine. But it was certainly a different type of fighting. And certainly for me, I was quite lucky. That suited my style. I was much more of an aggressive fighter than a technical fighter. So I really liked it. And also what I found, the Taekwondo overseas, certainly in the likes of Poland, Russia, Germany, a lot of it is Taekwondo plus kickboxing. So the guys are all big, strong guys. So for me, the advantage was, as a middleweight, actually I'm really fighting people at the height of lightweight, but they're actually stacked. They've been on the weights, they're quite strong. So again, Gavin I'll get the dig in before Gavin gets me. My flexibility, I'm not renowned for my flexibility. So anytime I went overseas to Eastern Europe, head kicks was great. They were coming in left, right, and Chelsea for me.
Drop those knees down, mate, and throw that ridge hand into the body. We've all taken that.
That's always the way.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you see with the kids as well, you like the international, the world championships that we held in the UK, and you get your squad of kids. Obviously, I've got a 14-year-old son who's in the sort of junior black belt divisions, and you stick them on these international events against these little Russian kids, and they're just all over them, and they're so much stronger. They're bred a different way over there for sure.
I mean, I thought I was pretty tough and that I could throw a good punch, so I could take a good punch. But as soon as you step out into that international arena, it goes up a level for sure. And all of a sudden, you know why they say see stars? Because you hear this noise, they do, what's that? And then all of a sudden there's like lights, and you're like, wow, and then it really hurts. So it is a big step up that international arena.
In the international fight arena, what would you say then, Jane, some of your greatest achievements have been?
I think obviously getting onto the squad was something that I'd always wanted to do right from being a junior colour belt. So the day that I was selected, and I was really lucky actually to take part in the 4th World Championships in 1998 in Birmingham, which was phenomenal. The way it was put on was amazing. The finals, they closed down half the hall. There was just one ring in the middle, and they kind of had loud music, and it was just the two fighters out on the mat with a massive crowd, and that was such an amazing atmosphere, and to experience that. So when the women's team, I think the women's team and the men's team both won that year, that was amazing to be part of that. And yeah, for me, I mean, I love competing. I love going everywhere, but just being part of something. I'm not the biggest. I wasn't the strongest individual fighter, but put me in a team, and you'd have to kill me to stop me.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Once you're in that team, it's your mentality changes slightly, because you're not just fighting for yourself, you're actually fighting for your team. And it's not the England team you're fighting for, it's the individuals that are standing side by side next to you, people that you've trained with week in and week out over a long period of time. So I think your mentality changes. You would run through walls, not to
absolutely.
Or let your team down.
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself incredibly lucky. I think the team that I was part of was an incredibly strong team, and we were very successful.
So who did you have on that team then?
So when I joined the team, Becky Riggs was the lightweight, Steph Harris was the middleweight, I was the light heavy, and Debbie Hill was the heavyweight. And we were pretty much unbeaten. The only time we'd get beaten was when we were in Holland, and then we would occasionally in the finals get beaten by the Dutch team. But I won't go into the politics of the Dutch team and the fact that Dad was the head of the Dutch organisation at the time, was also father of one of the girls on the opposing team. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying any more.
Oh, that sounds like there's a good story behind that, Jane. We'll have to catch you at the next Black Belt grading and drag it out of you.
Yeah.
So in terms of being an individual sparrer, what sort of accolades did you win as an individual?
I mean, I did well. I think, I probably, I did win a lot. I had a lot of, I won the British Championships consistently. I won the English Championships consistently. I didn't always go up to Scotland, so I didn't have so many Scottish titles, but I probably had 8 British titles, 8 English titles, about probably 5 or 6 Welsh championship titles. So I did well, but I didn't love it as much as being in the team. For me, being part of something bigger than myself, that's what really kind of made me pull the stops out and work really hard.
Did you ever do patterns, Jane?
Yeah. I would. I was quite successful at patterns and very much so at destruction. I was very good at destruction. So I did class myself as a all-rounder. I mean, I think myself and Becky, we were both kind of all-rounders. We were, we did the patterns, we did the sparring as well as destruction. And I know there are a lot more squad members now that are far more all-rounders. But I think that was something that was relatively new, because I think up until then, fighters were fighters and they didn't necessarily do the other disciplines as well. So I loved it all. I loved it all.
What's your sort of go-to move to breaking?
I really like reverse turning kick and elbow, because you can't, elbows are tough. It's a tough weapon, isn't it? Really, it breaks anything. So, I've won a couple of world titles at reverse turning kick and a few at elbow.
It's quite an interesting kick to be good at breaking at, because I was expecting a front leg pushing side kick or back leg side kick, or like I say, you don't see that many reverse turning kick people breaking with reverse turning kicks now. In fact, you don't see many people breaking with turning kick either. It's mainly a back leg side kick generally, isn't it? That you see.
Yeah, I used to do turning kick quite a lot. I used to do reverse knife hand a lot, but when I was in Miami, I actually shattered my hand before the team event. So I fought in the team with a broken hand, which got hit quite a bit. So that was uncomfortable. I didn't lose any fights. I have to say, didn't lose any of my fights, but it was tricky. So I dropped reverse knife hand after that.
It's funny though, isn't it? When you're a full-time instructor, I know certainly it goes through my head. Even now, I'm tempted to competitions and think, I'm going to put myself down for breaking or whatever. But it's just always that fear of, okay, look, I'm a full-time instructor. This is what I do for a living now. I just can't afford to break my ankle or break my wrist, and so I suppose that what always puts me off these days. Certainly, I don't know if you found the same thing.
I don't compete anymore. I've got some very talented students that compete. So if I go to competitions, I'm usually either officiating or I'm there to support them. And I haven't probably 2011, 2012 was probably the last time I competed. But see, I was the other way around. When I was on the squad and when I was competing, I didn't do anything that might jeopardize that. So, people go, oh, let's go skiing. It's like, no, if I break something, I can't be on the squad. So, I think I limited my life, not in a way that I was, upset about, but I didn't do a lot of things because I didn't want to jeopardize my position. But since I've retired, I do all sorts of crazy stuff now. It doesn't really occur to me about not teaching because I think I've had a knee operation and went in on crutches. I don't think much would stop me from teaching unless I couldn't move. I'm going to be there in front of my students teaching.
I think, to be honest, I think Gavin just needs to toughen up a little bit.
Hey, it doesn't matter. We're doing virtual stuff now, mate. So
exactly.
I can sit on the chair and do it.
We'll see you in hand destruction at the next competition, then, shall we?
No, you won't. So just talk us through some of that crazy stuff you're talking about, then, Jane. I'm intrigued now.
Well, I kind of do marathons up mountains, and one of the things I really love doing is I go up to Scotland every year and I do a race from one side of the country to the other side. And you pretty much go in a straight line. So you do kind of road running, trail running, kayaking when you hit a lock. You do mountain biking, you do road biking. So it's like 108 miles in a day. So
Wow.
yeah, just mundane, everyday stuff like that, really.
I was waiting for bungee jumping and skydiving to come into it.
No. I mean, I'm a big fundraiser. I like raising money for charity, and if somebody said do this for charity, you know what, I wouldn't say no. But I don't think I've done quite a lot of kind of obstacle course races, and I didn't realise I had a fear of throwing myself off tall things until I came to one race where you had to jump off, and it was like a 30-foot drop into a pool of water, and I just went up there. I was ready to go. I ran to the edge, and like that cartoon moment where the body goes "Ah!" and they stop. My body did that, and I'm like, what the hell was that? So I backed up again, ran at it, and there was just no way. There was something inside of me, deep down in my kind of hard wiring, that just went, you're not going to do that. Asked me to climb down a rope 30, 60, 100 foot. I've got no problems doing that, but asked me to actually physically go. So I think skydiving might be my nemesis. I'm not sure if I could actually do that.
If we can get you a charity skydive, then that'd be quite interesting.
I think I'd have to be attached to somebody, and they'd have to do the running out for me, because I think my body would just go, it's not happening.
It's funny though, isn't it, when you put yourself in these positions that you've never been in before. I can recall. I remember when I went on when I was working for a big corporate firm, and they have like these away days, and there was a team, and it was in two teams, and they'd put like eggs. You had to get like a basket, and you had to go around collecting eggs in this sort of wilderness, if you like. And typical Gavin, I was like, "Come on, guys, let's go for. I'm leader of the pack, getting out there." And then one of the things we had to do was go through this tunnel, and they put the eggs in the middle of this tunnel. And I started, straight in, and jumped in the brook, got my head down, started going through this tunnel. And then as I just got this absolutely overwhelming panic of like, what am I doing in here, right? And it just
Jackie,
hit me.
Were you there because you're laughing?
No, he wasn't. No, he knows nothing about this story. I've got lots of these little stories that he doesn't know about.
Having scaredy cat stories, I can imagine there's thousands.
Yeah, yes. So I'm crawling through this tunnel. And then some guy grabbed me, because, do you want me to take the lead? I said, yeah, you need to take the lead. I can't do this. And then he tried. He sort of got past me. And just as we got halfway through the tunnel, we realised that the other team had come in the other entrance through this tunnel, and they would meet us. And so it was like we couldn't get past each other. We were like, who's going back? I was like, well, we ain't going back. And I think we did end up going back in the air, probably with my scaredy cat antics on it, But again, it's one of those things, isn't it? Until you do these things that you've never done before, you don't always know how your body's going to react to it, do you?
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever encountered anything like that, because I'm kind of one of these people that I'm very determined, but it's not that I don't want to give up. It never occurs to me to give up. So to actually come across a barrier that I can't physically overcome, it was quite enlightening and very humbling, because it was like, oh my God, can't do it.
It's a challenge. You've got to almost take a cassette out of your mind with your current programming, put in a blank cassette, and just go for it. I've been in quite a few situations like that where, I know it's not the right thing to do. I know my body doesn't want to do it, but actually you've got to get in and do it. and I attribute that. In fact, I can't think of a time I've ever had that apart from being a young child, where when I was as a youngster, I never wanted to go up and spar. My dad insisted that I'd get up into the ring, and it was back in the days, back in the 80s, early 80s, where you had 20 kids, you'd line them up, lightweights and heavyweights, and that'd be it. And if you were tall, you got put in with the kids. I was I was fairly average, but I had a big afro, so that always got me up a few more inches.
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that afro again, Jackie.
Yeah, it's never going to make a comeback, not on this head. But so I used to just get put in with the big kids. And I remember just getting battered around the square, and every time I would dread it. And eventually I got to the stage where I'd done it so many times, I got battered that many times, I just become numb to it. So I suppose that part of the fear piece was coaxed out of me over a period of time at an early age. And, I'm quite grateful that my dad pushed me into it, because any of the challenges I've had in life now, I've not really feared them. I'll probably just consider them more, or I just think, what, I'm not going to die from it, and off you go. But yeah, interesting. So when you finished competing, when did you become an instructor? Or were you competing and starting your clubs up at the same time?
I became an instructor as soon as I got my black belt. So 1994, a good friend of mine who I'd trained alongside, he was ahead of me, so he got his black belt and he'd opened a club. He got promoted at work, and he could no longer devote the time to teaching. So he asked me if I wanted to take over. So I think I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but I think I actually started teaching them when I was a black tag under the...
Oh, there were no rules back then, of course you can say.
Under the guidance of my instructor. And then obviously as soon as I got my black belt, I was pushed along, to take my instructor's qualifications. And then I officially took it over in 94. But so I was teaching, working full time, and on the squad, which was tough actually, physically. And
so your whole life was basically dedicated to Taekwondo in them days, then, as pretty much an athlete and an instructor and a coach.
Yeah. I mean, I continued working. I mean, like I said, I was working in accounting, and I've just started to find that sitting down all day was absolutely soul destroying. So I gave that up and took a more physical job, so moving around. So I started to put artwork on hot air balloons, which was an amazing job.
Cool.
But obviously that afforded me more mental time and energy to kind of dedicate to my Taekwondo. But yeah, no, Taekwondo is my biggest love, I would say, in my life. I just absolutely love it. I love it. Wouldn't change it for the world.
So when did you make that transition between becoming a part-time instructor into a full-time one? And sort of talk us through your sort of thought processes with that, 'cause it's quite a big decision to make, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think I know the working environment's changed a lot now. A lot more people work from home and they work weekends. But when I left school, work was very much a 9-to-5 thing. You got up in the morning, you went to work on a Monday, you worked through the week, and you had your weekends off. So that's kind of how the working life was for myself and most people that I knew. I got to a point where I could take voluntary redundancy. I think was just before we went to Miami. I think that was in 2002, wasn't it? 2002. So I took redundancy in 2001, and then started looking for another job. But I'd go along and I'd say, well, I have to leave early on this day because I'm teaching, and I can't work weekends because I've got squad training and competitions. And so actually finding a job was really, people would say, I don't think you really want a job, do you? Because you can't fulfill what we're asking. And I sat there and I thought, maybe I don't actually need to have a full-time job. I had two successful clubs then. So, I just took my redundancy and went full-time, which was scary. Not getting up and not going to work in the morning is a scary prospect when you've been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years. To suddenly have that complete change and your lifestyle kind of flip round is disconcerting. I would feel bad about not getting up and going out. So I found it quite uncomfortable, but do you know what? Love it now. And I'm walking my dogs on the beach in the sunshine during the day. Love it.
It's weird though, isn't it? It is weird when you go from having like a 9-to-5 regular job, which I did as well, because I was a sales manager for a corporate company, And obviously I made that move and became a full-time instructor. But that day when you sort of give that job up, and then the next day it's like you get up and it's like, actually, I can wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning if I wanted to. And then obviously I'm not teaching till 4 or 5 o'clock or whatever it's going to be. It's a weird feeling, isn't it? Sure.
It is. I did find it a little bit terrifying, I have to say. Not from a financial point of view and am I going to be okay? I don't think that ever worried me, but it's just having to then suddenly be in control of your own destiny and the master of your own time and not have anybody else making demands. It was quite scary to be in control of my life.
I mean, it's something, it's not for everybody, because you've got to be self-motivated, haven't you? No one's going to tell you what to do, and no one's going to put that money in your pocket, so you can put a roof over your head and feed and clothe yourself. You've got to make those decisions for yourself, and you've got to get up. You do have to get up, albeit a little bit later in some instances. Yeah. But you've got to put the work in, and you've got to find your own schedule and get your own routine. And like I say, it's not for everybody.
No, I mean, I work probably more than I should. If I happen to if I end up this is my office at home, and if I walk past the door, I just pop in, and then, and then you just, before you know it, you've done 2 or 3 hours of work where most people would be enjoying their evening in front of the TV, or, out at a restaurant having dinner. So my difficulty isn't making myself work. The problem I've always faced is stopping myself from working.
When to stop. I think me and myself and Jackie can resonate with that, because again, we're forever in our offices, Zooming each other, working on a business or talking about Taekwondo, doing the podcasting. And to be honest, the best thing I ever bought was a comfy chair for my office.
I've got a standing desk, so or a ball. So at the moment I'm sat on a ball.
Well, it's so standard, isn't it? And it's such a standard thing that you hear about, for small business owners, is that, and I suppose it's almost a trap that I fell into to a degree. I remember when I became a full-time instructor, and I was like, right, I've created my own business. What? No, actually, it was only... So
you actually created your own job.
Created a job, exactly. It was only a couple of years ago that I really realised that. This sort of penny dropped. I thought, you know what, I've not actually created myself a business. I've actually just created myself a job, and it's a job where I probably work twice as hard as if it had been for somebody else, and I'm not always going to be rewarded with a paycheck at the end of the month unless I put the graft in. And I think certainly, I know me and Jackie, we always talk about how to try to get yourself into a position where you don't have to work, because you don't go and teach because you have to. You can go and teach because you want to. And I think there's so many instructors out there that turn up week in, week out, and they go to teach because they have to, not because they particularly want to. And the problem is then, if you're not careful, you start to fall out of love with the sport, because you go in there because it's just becoming another job. And I know we had over the months we've been interviewing, we had Matt Chapman on from the Mitmaster. I don't know if you've ever seen the Mitmaster program. Yeah. And he's a big advocate of getting people to record stuff and to get it online now, because as we get older and we can't do the moves like we used to be able to, if we can somehow get some sort of record of that on online footage, if you like, then you're basically going to live on forever, and even when you're gone, people can still learn from the stuff that you've put down on that content you put down onto cassette or DVD or hard drive or whatever it is on the server, on the cloud. Your time lives on, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a bit of a mindset as well, because certainly from our generation, we look at our parents, and that's really the example that we learn from. Our parents, most of them, had a 9-to-5 job. They would go to work, or they would work, and they would work to a retirement. And when they can afford to retire, dare I say it, most of them passed away before they got to fully enjoy it, which is devastating. So now the way I try and structure my life, I don't really say I go to work. I'm employed by a company. They pay for X amount of my time, and of which I reward them by putting in and building their business. I also have time which I dedicate towards my own businesses. So I don't actually call it work. It's just allocating time into my life. Now I'm a mobile worker, so if I go to Germany, I can work. If I go over on a trip to America, I can still do my time and hours that I'm being employed for the output that they're asking for, but also I'm over there doing podcasting. So I try not to sit myself, I've got a job. I haven't got a job. I've got a lifestyle, which is a mobile lifestyle, and I try and allocate hours to each of those jobs. And I can manage that quite successfully. However, I do tend to put a lot more time into my business out of my employment hours. But again, I can do either role anywhere in the world nowadays.
It's having your vocation.
I've got a job.
It's having your vocation and vacation together, isn't it? I know we always.
It is, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you say, you go away with your family, and you can still work. You can still take a 2-week holiday. I always take my laptop wherever I go. You know, and we'll still be working even when we're on a family holiday. But then you still get the time to spend with the family, and I don't think you can ever switch off totally as a small business owner.
No, definitely not.
I went to the Scilly Isles actually, and you have to switch off there because there's no 3G. There's really limited internet.
Oh my god!
So, yeah, I know. I went for like 10 days, and it was almost like cleansing because it's like mobile device battery ran out. Don't even bother charging it because it's no good anyway. So if you ever want to detox some technology, yeah, go and visit the.
That would just be torture for me. I don't think I could manage.
I thought you was born in the Scilly Isles, Jackie.
Really, Gavin. So, moving forward, then, Jane. So, what are your aspirations? Obviously, you run successful schools now. What are your plans for the future?
Last year I started training with the IAWP, which is the International Association of Wellness Professionals, because I've got a deep-founded interest in well-being. I think there's more to being well than just being fit. There's more to being well than just obviously having a good diet. And what pushed me down that path is I wanted to do more for the students that I had. I wanted to do more than just, obviously, I think Taekwondo is an amazing way of developing people physically as well as mentally. I don't think people appreciate just how good it is for your mental well-being as well as obviously your physical fitness. But I'm just trying to educate people that really it shouldn't be about diet and exercise. Life shouldn't be about dieting and exercising and restricting yourself. We should be kind of nourishing and moving our bodies more and looking at it more like that. I mean, I think a lot of people think of exercise as a punishment, whereas our bodies were designed to move. That's what we've been evolved to do. We've put ourselves into kind of very sedimentary lifestyles where we're sat still a lot of the time, and that's just not what our bodies are designed to do. They're an amazing piece of kit which are capable of doing, amazing physical movements and have the capacity to adapt so quickly. It's just we kind of get into this mindset of I'm too old, I'm too overweight, I can't do that, and the only thing that is stopping people is that kind of mindset. So yeah, I've been doing lots of studying and growing personally myself to try and find the best way to help people overcome that.
I think you can certainly help it within your schools, can't you? I'd imagine
Definitely.
that it gives you lots of opportunity within your classes to add those type of extra lessons onto your classes. Really, it's a perfect learning environment for that type of thing, isn't it? Because you've got people there that have already taken that first step. It's just to getting them to understand the rest of the stuff that goes with it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think I know a lot of it, which is what surprised me. I mean, diet is diet, but the food that we eat, the quality of the food that we eat, and the amounts of food that we eat are all so important to how we feel emotionally and how we feel physically. And people eat quite mindlessly. I think there's when you go into the supermarket these days, there's probably the first couple of aisles of food, and then you've got rows and rows and rows and rows of processed crap, if I'm allowed to say crap. And that's what a majority of people live on these days, and they think that it's food and they think that it's doing their bodies good, and it just really
are you telling me those chicken Kievs I had for lunch are not good for me?
If you enjoyed them, then there was obviously some goodness in it if you enjoyed them, but yeah, hell no, definitely not.
But it's funny when you think back to when you grew up, so obviously growing up in the 80s, everything you had on your plate was either squash or mince or yellow chips and, waffles and everything else, wasn't it? So it's great that we're now a bit more educated to that sort of thing as well for our own kids and, for our own students, really.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But there needs to be more. I think people need to go back to cooking more for themselves and not relying on supermarket ready meals and processed food. Cooking for yourself with good quality ingredients isn't difficult if you just kind of sit down and learn the process.
Learn the process and plan. It's about planning, and I think that's one of the challenges we have now in such a fast-paced environment. People just don't have the time to plan, and it's always easier, isn't it, just to grab a ready meal or to grab something that isn't as healthy. And I certainly know I spend a lot of time, myself and my partner, making sure that we buy fresh food and we plan our meals for the week, because we certainly don't want to be nipping into McDonald's every 5 minutes like I always seem to find Gavin when I find
honestly, Jane, he is the worst for it. He'll blame me. He's laughing to himself. He knows it, right? There's not a McDonald's in miles from where I live. You step outside Jackie's apartment, turn right. Guess what's right opposite you? and when we're podcasting there, the worst thing is we got an Uber Eat from there, and it was literally about 3 minutes walk, Jackie. Go on, Jackie White.
That's bad. That's really, really bad.
It has its place in emergencies.
Yeah. So I suppose we're in lockdown to a degree at the moment with the coronavirus. How do you see things changing going forward? Just talking about obviously things like the healthy eating aspect and things like that. Jackie was saying people don't have the time, where at the moment people have got a bit more time. Do you think how do you see sort of things changing when we get back to whatever the new normal is going to be?
I'm really hoping that it's going to help a lot of people reset and kind of reconnect and discover the things that are important to them. I think we can really get bogged down working when there's so much more to life than just earning money. So obviously developing good quality relationships with the people around you. I mean, we're human. Part of being human is that we have this inner need to have connections with other people. But I think sometimes we can be quite isolated because we're either working or we're sleeping to get ready to go to work again. And I think going outside and reconnecting with nature, spending time in the great outdoors is so important. I mean, human bodies can't synthesize vitamin D on their own, but if you go outside in the sunshine 20 minutes, and your body then is able and capable of creating enough vitamin D, for you to survive very, very happily. So it's just kind of understanding these things and just reconnecting with the world, and not through a device. So many kids I see nowadays, that's how they connect with each other. That's how they connect with their environment. And I'm just hoping that having forcibly been put in their homes, that they might then suddenly realize how important nature and other human beings and connecting with those things are. So that's my hope, that everybody will reset.
Do you not think at the same time though it's their only way of communicating now as well, isn't it? And this is the difficulty that I'm finding, certainly in my family at the moment. Obviously having two boys that are normally outside playing, they're normally out on their bikes with their friends in the woods and stuff like that after school, that they love it outside.
But that's great, and I think rare today, that's the rarity for some children, isn't it? I mean,
it is.
It's not the norm.
No.
Absolutely, but the problem is now the only way they can connect with their friends is via the phone or via things like Xboxes, when they're on there and they're chatting to their friends. And I know my two at the moment, apart from obviously they're doing their schoolwork as always, but when I can get them to do schoolwork, and but then at the same time they're itching to get on the Xbox. It's not so much because of the game; it's more because all their friends are on there, and they can. They're interacting with their mates when they can't just go out and see them anymore. So it's a challenging one, isn't it? It's a challenging one. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out over the next 3 or 4 months. Because it's an unprecedented type situation that we're in, isn't it? We've never really seen it before.
Definitely. But I mean, I'm offering online classes for my students, as I know you guys are, and I think the feedback that I'm getting from most of them is just seeing other people outside of their kind of family kind of little circle is a godsend for them. So they're enjoying doing the lessons because they're getting to do something physical, but just that kind of emotional and mental well-being that they're getting from spending time with other people. I do one-on-ones as well, so I allow them to just book and do just short 10-minute one-on-ones, and I've had a few where the students have just wanted to talk, talk to somebody else rather than really go over taekwondo. And I've said to them now, if they want to do that, then please do, because I think some of them probably are murdering family members in their head every now and again throughout the day. So, but yeah, I'm hoping that people will want to put those electronic devices down once this is over, and then go back to having more real connections with the people around them.
I mean, for your own mental health, it's important, isn't it? I mean, we've got such a big problem with mental health anyway in the world, and obviously a lot of it is probably the sort of devices are contributing to that quite a lot. I sort of firmly believe that.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's why more often than not, you get parents bring their kids to your dojo because they want them to get off the devices and they want them to do something physically where they're learning, emotionally, intelligently, and physically, that they're learning within the sort of constraints of the dojo, aren't they? So I'm pretty sure that things will sort of normalise out eventually. It's just I think the virtual stuff will definitely take a big place, and I think we'll be here to stay for sure. To what degree, I just don't know really. I don't suppose at the moment.
I'm definitely planning to do continue, possibly not full classes, but definitely individual one-on-one tuition, because it just is so easy, and you can get right in front of the camera and make techniques really, really clear. You don't have to worry about driving anywhere to meet somebody. You don't have to worry about finding a venue. So it's making one-on-one tuition a lot more accessible, I think, for your students.
Yeah, well, I actually started doing virtual one-to-ones about a year ago.
Wow.
Something that I've been doing for quite a while, because I used to do one-to-ones. I obviously in my garage is sort of converted into like a little mini dojo where I do my one-to-ones out from, which I'm glad that I did really, because obviously I can do my one-to-ones. So my virtual classes from there now. But I was finding that because of where I am, obviously I'm in York, but I've also got Beverley, and I've got all the sort of surrounding towns. So it's not like I've got one fixed premises that's easy for me just to turn up and do one-to-ones from. So I was finding students were travelling sometimes 45 minutes to come to me and was doing an hour class. And I was finding the majority of the time I was just sat there watching them, telling them how to do a pattern or showing them how to do the moves correctly. And I thought, actually, I could do this with my phone. This is mental. So I started doing offering one-to-ones, but I started offering virtual one-to-ones. And it was literally a 20-minute class. Just get your phone. And more often than not, it was me sat behind my computer watching somebody do a pattern. Say, no, change your leg. Start that block again. It's a middle block, not a high block. Go back, change your leg over. And it was that sort of process. And I think you're absolutely right. It's amazing what you can do in that short time, isn't it? Just by using your computer.
Yeah, it's very, very beneficial, I think.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Jane, so just a couple of things I'm keen to understand. So who would you say have been some of the biggest influences in your martial arts career?
That's a tough one. There have been many. When I was a colour belt, obviously you look up other fighters. One of the female fighters that I always used to admire was Rosalind Simpson. She's not really talked about much these days, but I mean, she was... I
remember her very well. When I was young, I used to train with her. And she was a phenomenal fighter, wasn't she?
She was. She would spar the men as well as the women at squad training, and I think everybody was equally, a little bit scared to spar her. So she caught me once with a jumping back kick. I nearly peed my pants. So she was up there for me. I always want one person. My students say to me, "Who's the one person that you admire?" The top of my list, without a doubt, without hesitation, is always Joseph Shembri. For me, he is he's a great all-rounder, and when he's on the mat, he is always the perfect sportsman, and that for me is it just, in this day and age when it's so easy, to be disrespectful, I just think when he was on the mat, he was never disrespectful. He was always fast, so disciplined. So as far in terms of fighters, I would say that Rosalind Simpson and Joseph Shembri were probably my two biggest influences. From a training perspective, obviously spent a lot of time squad training, so Kenny Wharton, Dave Oliver have been big influences in my life. But but I would go to British squad or English squad training on a Saturday, and then I would go over to Wales, and I trained a lot with Yanni Peros. So I do Welsh squad training on a Sunday. And from a technical point of view, he's an amazing guy. And, he'd spend a lot of time saying, don't do it like this, do it like that. And I'd be scratching my head going, I can't see what the difference is. So he's got such an eye for detail.
Almost definitely.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's phenomenal instructor, isn't he? And martial artist.
Yeah, and somebody I would have loved to have been able to train with more was Ralph Minot. Okay, I think he's amazing too. So, we're so lucky in the TAGB actually to have so many great teachers out there.
We are. No, most definitely. And I think then really, coming close to wrapping it up, what would you tell a younger, what advice would you give to a younger self now, given where you are in your life? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Believe in yourself, I think. I think one of the reasons I was much better in a team than I was as an individual, I had quite a rough childhood. So there was a lot of self-doubt within me. And one of the reasons I'm doing life coaching is because I want to kind of help people overcome that little nagging voice that you can kind of get in the back of your head. I'm sure you kind of mentioned it earlier when, it's like, that imposter syndrome. It's quite a natural thing. You get good at something and then a little voice in your back says, who are you to think you're good at this? I just think really self-belief. You've got to believe in yourself first and foremost. And you've also got to love yourself. And I know that some people kind of interpret that the wrong way, but loving the world really starts from here. You've got to love who you are to be able to obviously let people in and
I agree
to be able to help them. So just really stop that little nagging voice. Make sure that voice inside of you is on your side, and don't let anybody tell you anything different. If you want to do it, then you can do it. You just got to work
really,
at it.
Really, really good advice. And I think like I say, as instructors, it's our job, I think, as martial artists, it's our job to sort of deliver that message to people, because by the time you reach the stage where like we have, we've been training sort of 30, 40 years. By that stage, you've got a lot of experience and you've been through a lot of things to get to where you are. And I think it's important we pass that message on to the youngsters. I think we do a great job as instructors, don't we? Really, you know what I mean? I think we're sometimes overlooked on what we do and some of the influence that we bring to a lot of the kids that maybe come from maybe a rougher upbringing or whatever. That's then they look up to you as like a mother and a father figure, don't they, within the dojo?
Yeah, definitely. We have quite a big responsibility, it took me quite a few years of coaching and teaching to appreciate kind of the power that we have and the influence that we have over the people, and that's a big responsibility. We've got to really make sure that we are nurturing and caring for the people, the students in our care, and just make sure that we're putting the right message across all the time, and in a positive way.
Yeah, no, most definitely. You know what, Jane? It's been an absolute fantastic insight into your martial arts career. It's been a great chat this afternoon, hasn't it, Gavin?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Where can people find you, Jane? If someone wants to come along to train with you, where can they find you?
I'm on Facebook. I've got a website, and I'm on Instagram, Twitter. So I now train under the name of the Holistic Taekwondo Coach, because I'm trying to bring my wellness training and my Taekwondo training together. So if you Google that or put that in Facebook, you should find me quite easily.
Cool.
Okay, fantastic.
Been a great interview. It's been great to have you on, Jane. Lovely.
Thank you very much for asking me. It's been an absolute privilege.
No, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jane.
Right.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your listening platform. It would be awesome if you could also leave us a review. We really appreciate your valued feedback.
Also, check out our website, themotivatedmartialartist.com. We also have a YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook page, and Facebook group. All the links are available on the show notes below.
We'd like to thank again our show sponsors, skillsconnect.co.uk, the world's leading children's development programme for martial arts. If you're a martial arts school owner or instructor and are looking for some inspiration, ideas or drills for your children's classes, make sure you check the skills out.